Hello and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today's video is one that has been long in the making. I mentioned in my February manga haul that I wanted to give these two series a read because I don't usually read a whole lot of horror, but I wanted to slowly ease myself into the genre, and I picked out these two because they are less jump scary horror and more psychological horror. And as someone who usually enjoys the more psychological aspects of storytelling, I thought they would be great picks for easing me into that genre of manga. And I am talking about Blood on the Tracks and The Summer Hikaru Died. I hadn't quite gotten to reading the both of them since I talked about them in February, but I finally read the first volumes of both series about a week ago, and I have the second volume of both series, but I would say, like, first impression, I didn't need to read beyond just the first volume for the both of them to get intrigued enough to keep reading the both of them. So just the first volume is enough to get a reader interested in the rest of the series. I'll say that as a first impression. And I'll do a quick comparison of both series before I go ahead to talk about them individually. So starting with a physical comparison, Blood on the Tracks is definitely the thicker of the two if you put them side by side, but I got through it much faster than I did The Summer Hikaru Died, because The Summer Hikaru Died is much wordier. Like, it has more words, so that makes it a little bit of a longer read. Blood on the Tracks, on the other hand, I think the art does most of the heavy lifting. It does such a great job of conveying the atmosphere for the story that you don't need a lot of words to really understand and feel the vibe that the story is trying to achieve. And it has a very distinct art style that works for the storytelling so well. I really enjoyed that about the manga, and it was just really easy to get through for that reason. On the other hand, The Summer Hikaru Died, I would say that the art also does the same thing. It's able to pass across the atmosphere that it wants to pass across, but it has a lot more words because there are things going on in the story that require a lot more details that only words can probably get across. But the art style is also pretty distinct and very beautiful, actually. It has some very interesting choices that the mangaka made with representing creatures in the manga that are very grotesque, and I'm just curious how or why they chose to represent some of those characters that way. That was the only thing that I noticed about the manga. Then for the mangaka for both series, Blood on the Tracks was written by Shuzo Oshimi. I'm familiar with that name, although this will be the first work of theirs that I'm trying. I know that they're pretty well known for this genre in manga, and after reading this first volume, I actually went to do a little bit of research on their other works, and there are so many of them that I'm already interested in reading, so I'll probably add them to my TBR for the future. On the other hand, The Summer Hikaru Died was written and drawn by a mangaka called 𝕨𝕬𝕝, who I had never heard about before. So again, I did a little bit of research on this mangaka and found out that this was a series that actually started getting drawn on Twitter, but later got serialized for a physical print, which is a very special story. I think stories like this make the manga more special to readers. It's very similar for the story for the mangaka for the guy she was interested in wasn't a guy at all. That name is a mouthful, and I always feel like I've said it wrongly. I hope I said it correctly. It sounded correct to me. But again, stories like that make manga like that very special to readers. I just find it very interesting and special that something like social media that can oftentimes be very negative has this positive aspects where you can discover talent and have them share stories that become special to their fans. So I just wanted to share that. I feel like there was one more comparison that I wanted to make. Yes, the last comparison I wanted to make for both stories was in terms of the genre of psychological horror. They're definitely both psychological horror, but from the jump, I feel like Blood on the Tracks definitely gives you that vibe more than The Summer Hikaru Died does. It doesn't come in until much later for The Summer Hikaru Died, and that's just a quick comparison for both stories. Now, to talk about the both of them individually, I'll start with Blood on the Tracks. I definitely enjoyed this one a lot more than The Summer Hikaru Died, and I will rate it 4.5 stars. This is a story about a 13-year-old boy, based on my calculations from reading the manga. He's 13-year-old, he has a seemingly normal life, good family at home, they get along very well. He has friends at school, again, he gets along with them very well. There is nothing exciting or extraordinary going on in Sei's life, and if you go into the series blind and you don't know that it's meant to be a psychological horror or just a horror in general, nothing really stands out about it. It just looks like you're reading a slice of life, because it's just detailing his life from like waking up, eating food at home, going to school. But if you pay close attention, what I said about the art, being able to achieve this very eerie atmosphere for the storytelling, you start to notice it. Everything looks normal, almost too normal. And the art conveys that aspect of, okay, everything looks good, but something feels very off, and you know something is about to go wrong. And the back of the manga says Seiichi's mother loves him very much. I'm gonna say a little bit too much. I would describe her as a helicopter mom, and you know how mentally damning helicopter moms can be. Helicopter parents in general. She dotes on him a whole lot. Again, it's not a problem until you start to take a closer look. She loves him a little bit too much. There were certain things that they mentioned that she did. Even their family members made fun of Sei and her for being a little bit too doting on him. And when other people start to notice things like that, you know that it's a problem. But it doesn't seem to be a problem to the both of them. And again, you know something is about to go wrong. And when it does go wrong, it is very jarring. So there's this switch that happens in the manga. Sei's cousin and his aunt, so his cousin and his cousin's mom come to visit. They all go for this hiking trip together as a family, and Sei's mom does something very terrible during this trip. But what is more jarring about what happens is that she does this thing, she catches herself very, very quickly and pretends like it didn't happen. But Sei was right there. He saw everything happen and he just went along with it. Now this is where you know that what seemed so harmless about their relationship suddenly doesn't look so harmless anymore. It almost came across as a form of conditioning, maybe a little bit of control, because he's so used to her looking like this perfect person that if she just says something and if she says something wrong and she catches herself and pretends like it didn't happen, he's just gonna go along with it. That was how I interpreted that scenario, or what happened in that specific what's it called? Crap, I can't speak today. In that panel, oh my god, why did it take me so long to think of that word? In that panel of the manga, she cut herself really fast and he just went along with it. It's kind of hard to describe what I'm talking about without spoiling it. And I don't want to spoil it for people because it's something that is very important to this volume of the manga. So I want you to read it and understand what I'm saying by yourself without me actually having to say it outright. But it was very jarring when it happened, and I was just like, huh, that is the psychological horror aspect of this manga. And if I had to guess what the rest of the manga will focus on, I think you're going to start seeing other things that probably happened in the past that he just unconsciously turned a blind eye to because of that conditioning of their relationship with each other, or how she has just slowly controlled him to react a certain way to all the things that she has done. So that is the psychological horror aspect of this manga. The story is probably going to heavily focus on Sei and the influence of his mom's helicopter parenting on him. I don't know how that's going to affect the rest of their family or the fallout for the rest of the family, but that was a very interesting read for me. I would say that I enjoyed the art style a lot. It is actually very, very distinct. I'm going to try to flip through it so you can see what I'm saying. It gives off this very sinister atmosphere. So even if you go into it blind, you're able to know that, okay, this is not a slice of life. Something feels very off about this manga. So yeah, that was Blood on the Tracks. I hope I was able to actually coherently describe my experience of reading it, but that's what I have to say about it for now. The summer Hikaru died, like I said, this one starts out a little bit more jump scary because of the grotesque creatures and just the beginning of the story as well. So this is about a boy called Hikaru who goes missing in the mountains, and he later comes back. Nobody really questions the fact that he came back, and he just integrates into his life before he went missing. And the only person that really questions the fact that he was missing and suddenly came back was his very close friend Yoshiki. But it's kind of really easy to miss the fact that he went missing because the person that came back after Hikaru went missing looks just like him, talks just like him, has his memories, and you can only tell that it's a different person because Yoshiki points that out at the end of the first chapter. So this is not something that's been hidden from you. At the very end of the first chapter, Yoshiki mentions, "You're not Hikaru, are you?" And I'm like, ooh, I think the back of the volume already tells you that. It has, yes, it describes this creature as it. It has Hikaru's face, it has Hikaru's voice, it even has Hikaru's memories. But whatever came down from the mountains 6 months ago isn't Yoshiki's best friend. Whatever it is dangerous. Carrying all at school and hanging out as if nothing has changed, as if Hikaru hasn't gone, would be crazy. But when it looks so very like Hikaru and acts so very like Hikaru. So this is the psychological aspect of the story, but you don't really get that at the beginning of the volume. So Yoshiki asks Hikaru, or this creature that has taken on the appearance of Hikaru, "You're not really Hikaru, are you?" And you start to get into the horrific aspect of this storytelling. And another thing that happens in the volume is Yoshiki says something very specific in this volume that I actually forgot to mark, and I wish that I did. But he says something along the lines of, "I don't care what you are as long as you're by my side," or something like that. And it made me question, like, okay, you realize that this person that is by your side, that is meant to be your best friend, is not really your best friend. It's just a creature that looks like your best friend, but you don't really know what it is. You don't know if this is the same creature that probably killed your best friend. You do not know what its intentions are by staying next to you or by coming down from the mountains, but you're okay with him being by your side because you don't want to lose the connection that you have with your best friend. Why is that? I think that's the psychological aspect of this story. Like, why is he not more afraid about the fact that this creature has come to stick next to him after his best friend went missing? And he doesn't seem to be questioning the fact that his best friend is missing as much as he's questioning the fact that he is now okay with the fact that this person is next to him. That was a very interesting part of Yoshiki's mindset for me, because I think if something like that happened to me, I'd be worried about, like, okay, or I'll just pretend that I don't know that this person is not Hikaru, because I don't know what you could do to me. I'm gonna try to involve someone else in it or try to get away from the situation as fast as I can. So I want to see what the mangaka plans to do with the story and explain the relationship between Yoshiki and Hikaru that started Yoshiki on this path to being okay with this creature being next to him. That will be the more psychological aspect of the story. And some very interesting things start to happen around the village that they live in after this creature descended from the mountains. Some people alluded to the fact that they were aware that something used to lurk in the mountains, but they noticed that it came down after Hikaru went missing. So there are very many threads to catch on to and probably explain further in other volumes. I would say that I have a lot more questions than answers after reading the first volume, but that's part of the intrigue that makes you interested in reading the rest of the series. I'll give this 4 stars because I have questions and I want them to be answered, which will probably get answered in the second volume. I haven't read the second volume for both series, but I'm going to try to get through them this month. And I'm not going to promise to talk about the second volume when I read them because I don't even know when that's going to happen. But I am definitely going to keep reading both series. I know this wasn't the most coherent review that I could have put together for both series, but this is like my 7th time recording this video and I'm going to leave it here this time. Whatever day you find yourself watching this, make it a great one and I will see you in my next video. Bye.